then we would just be live, and it would be awkward for us
Yeah.
to have that, in medias res. Oh, hi!
Hey, everybody.
Bonjour, this is DBAs Midnight.
I'm Sean.
I'm Jen. I don't know if we
Yeah.
did that backward, but it doesn't matter. We got all the names in.
No, I usually go first.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, so.
From WT.
Episode 2. I actually rewatched part of Ep 1 to make sure that we didn't promise that it would be weekly, because, that would be a bad idea to promise.
Especially since last week we were...
on fire.
Yes. I was trying to say fired out, fired up, fired... Anyway, we were displaced from the Colorado forest fires last week.
Yeah.
It's not that we couldn't have done this from where we were.
That just... it's actually just a thing that happened. We weren't going to do it anyway. But, no, that's okay. We do it when we can, and then it's there for posterity.
I was actually thinking about this the other day, going,
Posterity.
are we going to do another one of those? Or
Never.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Never. So yeah, DBAs at Midnight. We sit down, we talk about SQL Server and PowerShell and various other things. One of the things, if you're watching this live or soon after, we've got a SQL Saturday coming up in Denver on the 17th. That's this coming weekend. And you are teaching an entire track.
I am.
Oh,
That was easy.
yeah. What
Yeah, I'm
are you
teaching.
teaching? You forgot?
Cursing 101 through 701. No, I've got the PowerShell track.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching from, I can't even spell PowerShell, all the way down to custom classes.
Ooh.
You should join in on some of that. That's good stuff.
Well, I'm likely to be there for a lot of the day because I'm kind of your not auditor, moderator, mediator, negotiator. I don't know.
That'll work.
Sure. Will it though?
So anyway, yeah, I've got the entire track. That's not the first time I've done that either. I think I did that in BR one time.
Mm-hmm. Baton Rouge, Red Stick.
The red stick.
We used to be in driving distance of Baton Rouge, but now we have
Kinda.
weather that gets under 100 degrees. It's great. So this week, what do we want to talk about? We don't have a ton of time before we've got a jet.
Right.
Last week we talked about what is an enterprise.
Yes,
And
and we
the one
talked about
server.
one server.
That's
And
right.
this week is a lot easier.
Oh, okay. Well, then bye, folks.
See ya. We're going to talk about rule number 2. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
This is true in a general sense.
Yeah.
What could that mean in a specific SQL Server kind of sense, Sean?
Well, it's really more of a way to think about your environment from a coding perspective.
Okay.
And it's kind of a way to remove excuses
I can't wait to hear
and
this.
to accomplish our one server goal, right?
Okay.
So, in short, all the way from SQL 7.0, maybe even some 6.0 and 6.5, but we might be getting a little bit dicey there, right?
Right.
All the way up to 22, every version of SQL from here to here, I'm going to stop at 2000 though, right?
Carry on. Doesn't matter.
They all have more in common than they have different.
Yeah.
You all have sys databases, you all have sys logins, you all have, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about, sys databases, because that's a really good one, right? There are more columns.
Yeah. But the base columns, database ID, name,
Yeah.
a lot of the options.
Yeah. If I'm collecting for base level information, I can run the exact same script against everything from probably 7.0 all the way up to 22.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm using the 7.0 columns,
Okay.
right? And it'll work just fine.
Okay. I'll play the audience here for a bit, belligerent audience, and hector
Sure.
you. So what, great, more things change and more that stay the same. Who cares? What's the big deal with that?
Right. I know,
Fingers.
right? So what that means is it's relatively easy to write a script that covers all of the versions in your shop.
Mm.
Because, one of the things I get a lot is, okay, but I've got a 2000 script and I've got an 08 script and I've got a 2016 script and I've got 22 script, right? And it's like, why?
Now I'll be the snarky co-star and say, these are people that have never heard of the if ADAT version like.
Yeah!
Or anything like that.
Yeah, right? So it's it's a fairly standard coding construct, right? And this is one of my coding rules. So this kind of goes into the coding rules, right? It's like
But
data.
this is like coding for administration, is the domain here.
Actually, it plays pretty well in other areas too.
Okay, there's a Venn diagram. Carry on.
Yeah. So it's data, then usage.
Okay.
Okay. So, do we have a way to screen share with this thing?
Not that I've tested, so let's do without it for right now.
Okay. It's just easier to see, right? So let's say that you're that we're scripting against multiple versions of SQL.
Okay,
right?
I've got one of each going back to 2005.
Okay, sure.
As of right this moment.
Sure. We'll even do 2000. Screw it. I'm
You
feeling
support
good
that
today,
one.
right? Yeah, that's fine. And we're getting sys database columns, right?
Sure.
And I want to get all the sys database columns.
Okay.
For all the versions,
Okay.
right? Which means that the script has to handle everything from, 2000 all the way up to 22. And it's really easy. You get the version of SQL you're on.
Sure.
Right? And then you say, if version equals this, query equals this.
Sure.
Right? So it'll be select, let's do a column list, shall we? Blam, 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 right? So I've got my 2000.
Sure.
And 05 adds, say, 2 columns, 3 columns,
Sure.
right? So,
And you select more. Yeah, it makes
so
sense.
I select more, but
But,
for the 2000,
yes,
since it's all got to go into the same table,
yes.
right? I just say null as, null as, null as for those new columns.
Sure.
Right? So by the time we get to 22, we've got mirroring columns and AG columns and contained columns and so on and so on and so on, right? So you're just going to have a lot of null as contained, null as AG GUID, null as mirror GUID, and so on and so on, right? Mm-hmm. So they're all going to be the same. So I'm setting up that query, right? So that by the time I actually run the query, no matter what it is, right?
Sure.
I'm going to say, I use functions, but I'm going to keep it easy for you guys, and I'm going to say invoke SQL command, which we can get into on another thing as to why I don't like that. But we can say invoke SQL command, and then server name, and then $query, right? So that's what I mean, though, is I'm getting the data, I'm getting that the data of that variable set, then I use it.
Let me know when is a good time for a question.
Go ahead.
So you kind of mentioned it before that you run into it all the time where people will have multiple versions and so they'll have multiple scripts. Got anything more specific than that to why it's a big deal? Because we're going to have some people out there who are like, yeah, we get. I already do. Who cares?
You want me to give my answer?
Oh, that's such a loaded question.
Isn't it, though? I'm just going to give my answer.
Give your answer.
Because people haven't been taught the basics of coding.
Right, because for some people this is not obvious, absolutely.
Right, and data then usage is a very basic way to set up your code, right? So
you said data then usage. I see the data part. Carry on with that second part.
Right, so I set the query.
Right.
That's the data.
Right.
Then I use it. That's the invoke SQL command. So there's only one call, right? What you see a lot of times is you'll see somebody set up, if version equals 2000, set the query, run the query. If it equals 2005, set the query, run the query.
You're almost normalizing your code, which I find...
Not even almost.
I didn't want to overstep there.
Right? So, but that's the point, is you say, you set the query, all the conditions for the query, blah, 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 so that by the end of it, you have a single version of the query variable.
Right.
And then you run it once.
Right.
Data, then usage.
Okay.
And this goes for so many things, right? When I'm querying, when I'm writing SPs to go against every single database, right? There are a couple ways you can do this.
Yeah.
You could set, let's say that I'm going to put a user inside each database, right? And so that's got to be a cursor.
Okay.
So, and whether it's in T-SQL or in PowerShell, it doesn't really matter, right?
Quick side note, I keep thinking of this in terms of a text box. Like, if this were a document, this would be a little text box. Just because we said the word cursor doesn't mean we're for cursors everywhere, mind you.
We'll get into that conversation.
Very briefly, in the text box, in administrative functions, it tends to be more acceptable than it is in like regular OLTP or reporting functions.
Yeah, it's more heavily
'Cause
used.
much smaller data sets. Carry on.
So there are a couple ways I can do that. I can change the where clause in the cursor,
Sure.
right? Or, especially if I'm going to be using this 2 or 3 cursors or something like that, right? I'll put a temp table at the top.
Right.
And then I'll just join with the temp table and all the things, right? And that's a very common thing that gets done. Again, you're normalizing, right? I'm setting up that data, I'm setting up that list, and then the rest of the queries are all genericized with joins to
Another
that
way-
temp table.
Another way to put this for you chefs out there is mise en place.
Sure.
You're getting all of your ingredients and things together in one place before you start making the whatever you're going to make. Yeah.
Right.
And that, for me, I'm instantly thinking about the cases where I open up an SP and people are declaring and setting variables all the way through the SP.
Yeah.
I don't care for that. I like everything defined up top and get as much of the data
Yeah.
gathering and declaration as
Yeah.
you can.
Now,
Get
that's
done
a
up there.
discussion we can have some other time, because I can see a case for both sides of that.
Another time, somebody will have to remind us, put it in the
Yeah.
comments, and
'Cause
we-
it's
we
not gonna
forget
be
things.
me.
Yeah, we'll forget things.
So, and I do this a lot, especially when I get, when I optimize SPs, right? And I see that there are a bunch of joins, so they'll have like this one query that joins this table, this other query that joins this table. Well, take those joins, put them up in a temp
Yeah.
table, and now you can just genericize that.
Yeah, because you're getting all of the same information, but you're pulling it here, and then you're pulling it again here, and then you're pulling it again here. And it's like, no, don't do that. And that'll help your performance, by the way, if you're not querying the same data 16 times.
Right. And this also gives you what I like to call your testing layer. Especially, now let's go back to the PowerShell. So we've got the different versions of SQL, we're querying sys databases, we're setting all the query, we're setting the query, then we're using that query parameter, right? I keep saying parameter, variable, but anyway.
Whatever.
And it gives you that testing layer, because now how easy is it to set that
Yeah.
and then test the queries that you're getting back for each one of them,
Yeah.
and then run it against each version, right? And in the SPs, that really, I mean, putting that up at the top in a temp table, putting all your databases in a temp table,
Yeah.
right, is really, it really adds to your testing layer, because now you can say, well, what if this database is offline, or what if this database is this, or what if this database is that, right? And so you can fill all of your database information in here, right, and in your temp table, and then underneath it you can run updates to test different scenarios.
Yeah.
What if this has, what if these two things don't match and they should, or what if I've got snapshots in there? Oh, well, I don't want to try to put a user in a snapshot, so I've got to filter out the snapshot databases, and so on, right? So it gives you what I call that testing layer, because now, it's really simple. Without touching any of the data, right, I can just write updates or inserts or deletes or something underneath it,
Yeah.
and then comment them out or delete them once I'm finished testing, and I haven't touched any of this up here.
Yeah. So,
And I
again,
use that all the time.
document thinking. I'm making a bullet list in my head, and the title is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Maybe if I feel like it, maybe I'll do editing and have it up there at the top. And then bullet point 1 is data then usage. Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, sure.
Because it's kind of a sub part of that.
Uh-huh.
And then one of the under that a bullet point. One of the benefits is it's a good testing. Well, not matrix, but it facilitates testing better.
Gives you a testing layer.
Testing layer.
Testing pain, if you will. Actually, it's
Testing pain.
actually it relieves testing pain. See
That's
what
a
I
pun.
did there?
That's a pun. Oh, I gotta remember to put fireworks right here.
So, the moral of the story here. Let's get rid of this damn book. The moral of the story here is the more things change, the more they stay the same, and that refers to being able to thinking about your environment instead of 100 completely disparate instances of SQL, right? again, we're back to one server, but which one of that server are we going to deal with right now? Right? But you got to be able to deal with that one server and one script, and data then usage is how you make that happen.
Okay.
One of the ways you make that happen, right? So it's an outstanding way to code. It's the way to code, and if we ever get to object-oriented principles in here, it really takes off there, because object-oriented is all about completely normalizing your code, like you mentioned earlier. It's all about normalizing your code, and you get to see some of that in SPs and functions, and maybe we'll talk about that too sometime, because it's a good place to get started with that concept.
I also recognize, text box, I also recognize that some portion of our audience is not going to be super familiar with normalization. I don't have the space to try and explain it here, but the short version is the way we structure tables and databases so that the data isn't stupid.
Yeah, well, in...
What's the short version?
Yeah, in OOP we call it dry coding. Don't repeat yourself.
Ah, I see. I thought you meant like it was, bubbly and effervescent, not very sweet.
Ah, yeah, no.
Bubbly and effervescent.
No. It's, but yeah, it's also one of the coding concepts is don't repeat yourself.
So I'm going to belabor the point the tiniest bit, and see if you have anything else to say, because the part of the point of bringing back DBAs at Midnight is talking about enterprise management, which is, watch the last episode for the definition. So this is your second principle of enterprise management. That means it's kind of a big deal. How does this facilitate? This is such a silly question in my brain. How does this facilitate enterprise management?
Well...
Why is it one of the principles?
I've already said it a couple times.
I know, but I'm putting a point on it.
Okay.
That's why it sounded like a dumb question in my head, but I'm putting a point on it.
Okay, that's why I'm going, because I'm like, what can I say that I haven't already said? Well, because the goal is to have one server.
Right.
And that's to be managed by, and that's to manage your entire shop with that one script that does what it does. Right. And so realizing that the more things change, the more they stay the same, and this is actually going to come up in other areas as well, right? You start to realize that you can put all of your versions of SQL in one script, and it's really not that hard, especially if all you're doing is collections.
Yeah. But
if you're doing other stuff too, like in 2000 you can't use the new DDL style syntax for adding members, you know, to groups, right? So okay, you got two choices, right? The other SPs still work just fine,
right?
But eventually you're going to phase those. Hopefully you're going to phase those older versions out and bring them up. So it's better, I think, right, to have the newer syntax for the newer boxes, and then the older syntax for the older boxes, and then as they get upgraded, you're just not going to use that anymore.
It just falls out.
Yeah, but there's no reason for it to fall out of the script. Keep it there. It doesn't hurt anything.
No. It just, they fall out of usage is what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was just putting a bow on top of it all. That's
okay.
our, if this were a school essay, that would be your concluding paragraph.
Ah.
See how great that is?
And now failed essay.
Anything else we want to talk about that, about just what's going on in life, about this fancy bottle or Post-it notes, or PowerShell or Denver?
No. I don't think anybody in Denver is going to be watching this before Denver, so...
Probably not.
Yeah.
Let's see, this is August, September, October, November, so it's less than 3 months until the PASS Community Data Summit, and we will be there. We're not presenting this year, or at least I'm not. I didn't submit.
No, I didn't submit either.
It's kind of relaxing after years and years of really running around in circles. Just to go, and we're not sponsoring, we're not speaking, we're just going to show up. We've got our donut meetup that Monday night. That's not posted yet. We just do a donut meetup every Monday night.
We had a pretty good turnout last year, too.
We had a really good turnout last year, yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think we're ever going to sponsor PASS again?
I don't know, maybe. it's
It was kind of weak last year. The vendor area was kind of weak last year, so I'm kind of glad we didn't.
I think it was better than the year prior.
But it was better than
So
the
it's
year
gonna
prior,
keep
so it's
picking
getting
up.
better.
But yeah. Oh, and COVID is spiking again real bad right now, y'all. So if you don't want to get COVID, John Stewart just got back from having had it, and he was like, first timer, you don't want this. So listen to your old pal John Stewart. And
Yeah, I got a client right now that's down with it, and she was sick as a dog on a call today.
Why do dogs get sick?
And she was just, and I was like, you don't have to start with the fake cough. We believe you.
And on that note, yeah, leave comments, share with your friends. Do not light fireworks if you're in Colorado to celebrate DBAs at Midnight, because you will set things on fire and we'll have to evacuate again. And having said that, yeah,
Yeah. Party on Wayne.
party on Garth. Party on Garth. Party.
Maybe we should make a computer thing and go, parody on Wayne.
Nah.